When it comes to manga and anime, there are literally thousands of different and varying styles when it comes to the presentation of a story. But before someone can know the story that's being told, the first thing they are going to see or experience is the artwork on the page. And a fact that may not want to be discussed is that for a lot of people, artwork has a serious impact on their ability to enjoy a story, or at least it causes limitations when it comes to enjoying that story. I think one of my favorite things about manga and why I prefer it over many Western comics is that when it comes to manga, you traditionally are experiencing one person's vision the entire way through. One voice, one story, one tone, and because of that, you can get fully immersed into what that person is trying to say, the themes that they are trying to express, and the unique way that each and every mangaka decides to show emotions, character goals, ambition, tragedy, and anything else that they want to tell. Unlike the Western strategy of comics where a writer and artist constantly change out every 6 months or so, leaving a lot of disjointed story threads, and when you get really invested in what one writer is presenting only to have it change over a couple months later, it can get really annoying and disappointing. Same thing with the artist. But with manga, that is less of an issue, and I am always incredibly impressed at how one person can create not just the story on the page, the dialogue, and the subject matter, but also actually have the artistic ability to draw all of it as well. Some people are talented writers, some people are talented artists, but to do both and then pull both off with such passion is something that I can barely even fathom to be real, but it is. And yes, I know that mangaka have assistants and editors and people help out, and I understand all that too. But overall, it is their vision coming to life that they lead the charge of. But also with that, you have that one person's artwork, and in a medium that is more or less dependent on that artwork being something that people will attach and connect with, along with the story, there is sometimes a disconnect that simply occurs when someone's taste doesn't line up with what that art is. I put up a poll on my Twitter the other day asking that if the artwork of a manga has ever turned you off to the point where you just didn't want to read it. After all, you can't tell how good a story is just by looking at the art. And as of right now, 58% of people said yes, that an art style was enough for them to dismiss a manga entirely. And some saying that there was a manga they were put off by at first and had to struggle a bit to get into it due to the art style. Others mentioned specific manga like One Piece or JoJo's where they mentioned that they couldn't get into it at all due to the art. And keep in mind, that's not saying that the artwork is bad, but a single vision or style will be unique to that one person and won't exactly vibe with everyone's sensibilities. Now, I'm not a One Piece fan, mostly because I have not read it, but I can completely understand somebody being off-put by the odd choices of the art style, the disproportionate bodies, and the very strange character designs. Or to make it fair, let's look at one of my favorite manga of all time, Hunter x Hunter, and I will be the first to admit that Yoshihiro Togashi's art style is wildly inconsistent. Sometimes it will be incredibly heavily detailed, and other times it will be literally squiggles on a page. And yeah, I know about his ailments and all that, but that's not the point. The point is that if someone were to look at some of Hunter x Hunter's art and just simply not like it, or want something more detailed, or at the very least something more consistent the entire way through, I couldn't say that they're wrong for thinking that. Take another manga that I love, for example, Attack on Titan. Now, when I first started reading Attack on Titan, I really didn't like the art at all, and in fact, the scratchy style of it made it really difficult for me to keep track of the action and even some of the characters. I thought Jean and Reiner looked way too similar, and I had a hard time telling them apart. And when it came to the action sequences, I had almost no idea what the hell was going on. The flow and movement of the characters seemed to make no sense to me, and it almost made me want to give up reading it entirely. Mostly I stuck with it because everyone kept telling me how good it was, and ultimately I'm really glad that I did keep reading it, as I found the artwork to get consistently better over time, and by the finale of the manga, I was very well adjusted to it and even really found myself liking it. And it's funny because when I said I liked the final arc and the ending of Attack on Titan, everyone was calling me a blind fanboy, but if you go back to watch my original reviews of the early portions of the manga, I had a lot of criticism with it, both artwork and story-wise. But this is also something that can be drastically improved upon when getting an anime adaptation. For both my previous examples, Hunter x Hunter and Attack on Titan, the anime versions are both hailed as some of the best out there, and for good reason. Showing the fluid movements of the characters, adding in intense music, quality voice acting, and encompassing those intense moments within the animated format tends to enhance what the manga gave you originally. Because unlike one person or a small team making a manga, a lot of team effort goes into creating an anime series, and a lot of the times I do feel like strong animation quality can make a manga better, especially when it comes to more action-based series. But then you also get circumstances like Demon Slayer, which many people say is carried by the animation alone. It's not the story that people gravitate to, but the fight scenes and the kinetic energy that the animation gives you. And that could be true. I've only seen a few episodes of Demon Slayer, so I can't give a full opinion here, but that does bring us to another question. Does the story have to be good if the animation is virtually flawless? With manga, you can have a great story, but if people don't vibe with the art, they'll never know. And with anime, people will watch great animation and don't necessarily need a great story to accompany it. And then we have stuff like Berserk 2016. The manga, and this isn't just because it's coming from me and one of the biggest Berserk fanboys on YouTube, the manga itself is well regarded within the entire manga community as one of the best when it comes to artwork. The level of detail and intensity that Miura puts into every single panel to make it a spectacle to behold, and the crazy thing is that it only gets better as the manga goes along. And then you even realize that the story of Berserk is god tier as well, and it truly cements itself as one of the greatest of all time. But then you get its adaptation, a CGI clusterfuck of horrendous proportions, animation so jarring and awkward to look at with camera movements that make no sense, and it actually detracts from the quality of the story it's supposed to portray. And the sad thing is that besides skipping literally volumes worth of content, the 2016 Berserk anime actually follows what it does cover of the manga pretty damn faithfully. But for newcomers to see this as their first experience, I could see many giving up within the first few episodes and never giving it a chance to the point where they would appreciate the story. Not to mention the 2016 anime starts at about volume 16 of Berserk and just expects you to know the backstory already without giving you much context. So yeah, it fails on virtually every level. Now let's take another example like Vagabond. Again, wildly hailed as one of the best when it comes to manga artwork, and it only takes a few panels to look at to understand why. Each still image of Vagabond can capture you in a way that very few manga artists can. The landscapes, the mountains, the trees, the scope of the world of feudal Japan that it takes place in, and then you delve into the story. Bruh. All you need to know about life, especially as a man, is within the pages of Vagabond. I'm telling you, if I have a son, as soon as he turns like 12 or 13, I'm throwing him into the wilderness by himself with nothing but a big-ass knife and every volume of Vagabond, and I trust that he'll find his way with just that. That's all you really need. But Vagabond has never had an anime adaptation, and one of my theories as to why particularly has to do with the artwork, because Vagabond, though having an amazing story, is carried by the art in the sense that the art is what tells the story, more so than the dialogue. You see within the eyes, the scenery, the tone, the expressions, so much of what this story has to say is within its incredible art. And my feeling is that if Vagabond got an anime, most fans would dismiss it just due to the fact that there's virtually no way to translate Takehiko Inoue's manga work into animation. His style is so specific, especially with Vagabond, and I don't think anybody wants to touch it and then have to deal with the backlash that would inevitably happen. So, despite how great the story is, it may always just be a manga, which for manga readers is just fine, but there's also a lot of people that are strictly anime only, and they will miss out on things like this. I remember an anime style that really bugged me was Devilman Crybaby, and I know I'm probably going to get shit for that. But the thing is, I think this anime is good, and I think it's more or less a really good adaptation of the Devilman manga, but the animation is so wacky and all over the place, and the characters feel like noodles with no weight behind them whatsoever, and it was definitely an artistic, stylistic choice, But ultimately, for me, it just didn't work on a lot of levels, and that boils down straight to preference. I really prefer the Devilman animation from the 80s version, but of course that adaptation doesn't tell the entire manga, so in cases like this, just like with Berserk, you really can't win if you want to watch it in animated form. Back to manga specifically, I know that seinen manga tends to, on average, have more detailed and realistic art, and that's probably because it's targeted more towards adults. And some people get so used to that it's hard at times to go back to shonen with its more simplistic designs, and then they miss out on some shonen that also have incredible stories to tell simply because they can no longer vibe with the art styles. As for myself, has there ever been a manga that I was truly turned away from based on art alone? Art alone, no, but manga I was on the fence about for multiple reasons. If I dislike the artwork, it really doesn't help me to put it first in line to read. Like I said, I remember having difficulty getting into Attack on Titan at first because of the art, and I'm sorry to bring it up again, but One Piece I have put off mostly because of the length. But to be honest, the artwork again doesn't help me want to get to it any faster. And none of this is to say that the artwork is bad, but if you are investing a lot of time into a series, you don't want to have to force yourself to enjoy looking at something that is very off-putting to you. And that's the sad part, because art doesn't really have any bearing on the quality of what you're reading, but it does have a strong impact on whether or not you will enjoy reading it. So I don't know, I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say. Tell me, has artwork ever impacted your ability to enjoy a manga, and specifically, how much does it matter to you overall? You can comment on anime as well when it comes to the animation style, so let me know all of your thoughts down below and opinions as well on this topic, because I'm really curious about it. Go ahead and like this video too if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Also check the description below for the links to my Patreon and merch store if you'd like to help the channel out on that deeper level. Other than that, guys, I thank you a lot for watching this video. It really does mean a lot to me. I truly do appreciate it. Hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.